Hello, everyone. This is the Ophthalmology Business Podcast, where we help you develop your ideal practice with the help of other doctors and experts. The topics we cover include marketing, management, leadership, recruitment, HR, mindsets, and more. I am Sarah Duval, one of the co-hosts of the podcast. Every listener of this podcast is welcome to join the Ophthalmology Business Academy, www.obacademy.org. The membership is on us, and it's our gift to you. Today, I'm excited to talk to Ben Seals, CEO of Thomas Eye Group, about staff talent development. So let's jump in. Good morning, Ben.
Hey, Sarah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, you're welcome, but I'm going to throw myself under the bus here before we get started. The listeners are in for a treat, I think, with this discussion. And this discussion should have happened, 2 months ago?
It happened just at the right time. You can get out of the driver's seat and just say, you know what, timing's perfect. We're doing it now.
Yeah, we're doing it now, but I did blow him off. So anyway. Okay. So Ben, before we get started with all the questions that I have for you today, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey into ophthalmology?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I found myself in eye care a little over 7 years ago. So I think I'm one of the newbies around here. Before that, I was in a much different specialty. So I was in urology working for Cardinal Health and their patient care division. And then prior to that, I worked for a subsidiary of Optum Healthcare. And before that, I worked for a large DME company up in the tri-state New York area doing CPAP, BiPAP, and O2 distribution. So I've been in and around healthcare for a while, fell into ophthalmology in 2017, and it's been a wild ride. I had no idea there was a difference between an ophthalmologist and an optometrist, but I've learned there are differences, and ultimately I'm excited to be part of this vision care community and Thomas Eye Group.
So have you been with Thomas Eye the entire time you've been in eye care?
Yes. So
yes.
I joined Thomas Eye Group and have learned a lot since we've been partnered together.
Yeah. And what roles have you held with Thomas Eye Group?
So when I started at Thomas Eye Group, I was the director of business operations, which was essentially our call center and revenue cycle organization. And that role lasted for about 6 months. And then they gave me the opportunity to take an interim executive director role while our executive director CEO role was vacant, and they were looking for someone to fill that. And then after about 12 months, they asked me to take that opportunity on. And so I grew into this role over the course of about 2 years of hard knocks and training and learning and trying to figure out all the different parts of the eye and what makes up a valuable practice when you do lifetime eye care like Thomas Eye Group does. But ultimately, the multifaceted, multi-specialty nature of our practice was something that took a little while to learn. And ultimately, I'm excited that they gave me the opportunity to grow into this role and have been the CEO of Thomas Eye Group for the last 5 years.
Wow. And I'd say they definitely made a good choice when they let you take that on. If you're not familiar with Ben, if you haven't heard him speak before, he's a great speaker, a smart guy. So I'm really excited about this conversation. And today we're going to talk about developing the talent on your team. So what does talent development look like for Thomas Eye Group?
Yeah. One of the things that we are very passionate about at Thomas Eye Group is developing an internal group of leaders and bench strength that helps our organization grow and develop from within. We want to make tangible, tactical investments in the young talent that we have within our organization that helps us continue to expand the suite of services that we provide, but also improves on those services. And so we do that through a number of different avenues at Thomas I Group. We take advantage of this full spectrum of services that are available through organizations like yours and ASOA and other administrative education organizations by sending our people to Askers, AAO, by making opportunities available through them for sponsorship in things like Dry Eye University or other programs that help our talented individuals grow their not only certifications, but their skill set within this space and also within tangential spaces that help our organization be more effective. So we've sent different leaders to Lean Six Sigma certification courses before. We've sent different members of our practice to do site visits at practices that may do things different and sometimes better than we do in some circumstances to learn and develop their skill sets and get a more rounded view of how our community of eye care delivers services across the country.
So some people might listen to this and think, well, that's easy for someone like Thomas I Group to do because they're really big and they probably have a lot of resources and deep pockets, right? So, I mean, have you guys built any internal tools? Do you have any internal tools versus the external sources and tools to help develop your team? Like, how could somebody who's a smaller and feels like they don't have the financial means to send people all over to these places?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And ultimately, I think you have to be scrappy is a word that we use at Thomas I Group. And I know that's not really a technical term, but even given our size and scale, we look for unique opportunities to invest in our people. And so one of the ways that we do that is through the LEAD program at ASOA. I was given the opportunity a while back to participate in the content development for that program. And the LEAD program is basically something that helps give a technician or front desk person or someone within your organization a platform to grow to be a middle manager or even a high-level senior manager within your organization. It's sort of that in between COA, COT, and COE certification program that exists, and it really creates this well-rounded opportunity for team members to build HR acumen, to build financial business acumen, to learn what drives the financial outcomes of the business. And so looking for programs like that, we've found that LEAD is probably one of the best in the market that's available to help our young leaders understand and become aware of the business aspect of what it takes to run any ophthalmology organization, whether it's one the size of Thomas I Group or even a private practice with one or a handful of providers. So actually, we do a lot of outsourcing. We do have some things that we've built internally, but I really feel like if there are programs out there that are constantly being refined by other practices, other members of the community within the business community. So our HR leadership development program is actually one that's put on by our local hospital system, and we use resources from them because they're training and developing 5 times the number of leaders that we are. And so we kind of have begged, steal, borrowed all of these different programs. And then we do look for, more specialty specific investments that we can make in people. I mentioned the Lean Six Sigma program. As we came out of COVID and the couple years that was the COVID pandemic and really saw the business starting to settle out, we knew that we needed to make some specific investments in process improvement and looking for efficiencies within our practice. And so in advance of that need, we took the opportunity to send a couple of our more talented individuals or up and coming talent to a Lean certification or Six Sigma certification course so that they could start to build that acumen and muscle of process engineering and measuring and mapping out processes to create linear flows and all of the specifics that come with Lean and Six Sigma that I'm not as intimately aware of, but ultimately we have great people in our communities around us and on our team that get really involved in that and are really passionate about making that happen for our patients and our employees.
Hmm. So can you tell me one talent development story from your time at the Thomas I Group that you could highlight?
Um, Man, that's tough. There's so many individuals in this great organization that I am thrilled to have the honor and pleasure of working with, and their stories are all amazing to list out. But if I had to list one, I would love to talk about Rachel. Rachel is a member of our team. She started out as a technician in one of our locations. Rachel joined our organization from a competitor. She had been in eye care for a while. She started when she was like 10, so I don't want to give away her age. She started out in eye care really young. And ultimately she grew up in the clinic, and she was really knowledgeable about clinic operations. And then she took on growing levels of responsibility in the clinic that she was in, and then ultimately grew to become a practice manager for one of our locations. And for no fault of her own, that location was not the right fit for Thomas I Group. And so we actually wind up closing that location. Rachel navigated the closure of an office for us. But then as she learned how to build a new location and start a new location and start new doctors and then close a location and relocate it and all of the nuances that come with that, she started getting these unique perspectives of what it takes to operate a location and more within an organization our size. And so she really built this knowledge and understanding of how intricately things are connected within our organization. So when we were presented with the opportunity to partner with a large optometric practice that had 5 locations across Metro Atlanta in our community, Rachel had this really unique skill set that we were able to tap into to onboard 5 ODs and their respective employees across the city, and do so in a way that not only communicated our values and the value that we placed in those individual employees in those locations, but really helped them transition and navigate the cultural and language and operational translation that has to occur when you're integrating something that large into something that was our size at that point in time. And so Rachel took on this lead project role. And since then, she's integrated 3 other acquisitions into our organization. She runs our project management office. So every substantial project that we identify as an organization, she runs the project management of that for us now. She reports directly to our CFO. So she's a member of our senior leadership team, but also reports into the C-suite of the organization and runs everything from financial projects to acquisition integration to new doctor onboarding and a host of other things that she's learned over the course of time since she joined Thomas I Group a little over a decade ago, and has really grown into. She told me the other day, she was like, I never imagined that I would be doing this, but I love it. And turns out she's really good at it. So Rachel's one of the many stories that I've got the privilege of watching see grow and develop at Thomas I Group. And ultimately, that's where I get my passion from, is seeing individuals grow and develop and cultivating the talent that's inherent in them and seeing that come to fruition in a way that adds value to not only our organization and our shareholders, but also the patients and the communities that we serve.
I love that story. Oh, congratulations, Rachel, if you ever hear this. So let's take a step back here, Ben.
Yeah.
What was it about Rachel that you, or maybe it was somebody under you who worked a little bit more closely with her on the daily? What was it about you guys that, or what was it about her, I should say, that you saw, that you thought, let's give her a chance. There's something there that we need to develop.
Yeah. So sorry, Rachel. Honestly, for me, it was how dissimilar we are. So Rachel is very much a details-oriented process person. The world is very black and white to her. And I don't think that way. And I love the conflict that creates, because I think it makes us a better organization. So what initially stood out to me and what I saw in some of my early interactions with Rachel was the value that her different paradigm could bring to the way that I think and view the organization and the business, and how I knew I needed someone who not only had the courage to stand up to and call BS in front of a CEO, but also did it in a way that was diplomatic and respectful, but helped our organization be better. And ultimately, her heart is always in a place where she wants us to be better for our staff members and for our patients. And so like that is something that I think that is the essence of what I saw in Rachel, is that even though we didn't see things the same way, we had the same goals and we wanted to make things better. And we were, and I can work with that all day long. Does that answer your question? I don't know if I kind of ran off into the weeds there a little bit. It happens sometimes, but.
Well, it brought up a very good point, Ben. It shows how you are a true leader, because there are people who run practices, and it's obviously not just practices, but any company, who are not leaders because they would see somebody who does things differently or looks at things differently, and they would just shut them down because they think that the way they do it is the end all and be all, right? And that's not serving them or their company at all, right? Or there's people, I think, that are up at the top of the ladder who are threatened by people who have talent, and they're very threatened by developing the talent because they're not a leader. They're a manager and a manager only. What are your, I mean, right? Have you ever
I
seen that?
I never want to be the smartest person in the room. That is way too much weight to carry.
Right, same.
And at the end of the day, my view is one in however many billion that we have in the world at this point in time. But ultimately, I don't feel it necessary to be the smartest person in the room. I want to work with the smartest people in the room, and I want to see those people bring their best work to the table every single day. But the hubris and the arrogance that sometimes can trip up anyone, no matter what level of the organization you're in, is dangerous. You have to be able to know what you can contribute and know the limitations of what you bring to the benefit of an organization, and work inside those limitations and flex those strengths when they're needed, but ultimately be able to tap into resources that have other strengths and other talents that, you know, frankly, we're not always going to be, none of us are perfect. Sorry if that shocks some of your listeners, but ultimately that fallibility that we all carry is what sort of necessitates the fact that I need smart people like Rachel around me to help me where I'm deficient in my knowledge.
It's so refreshing, honest to God. It's so refreshing to hear that. I unfortunately, through my career in ophthalmology, had quite a different experience. And I don't think I really need to go into it, but it was quite a different experience. And I can't even imagine how I could have been developed even more and at a quicker pace if I had worked for somebody who saw the practice in the world like you. And I don't think that it can be emphasized enough, honestly, that if you're going to lead a practice or any business, you need to really lead it. It's not enough to just manage it. You need to really lead your people and develop your people, because you're not always going to be there, right? You need somebody, or some more than one person, who can come up through the ranks and who can be the succession plan of a practice. And it's really dangerous if you don't have that, because you're, yeah. This could be another podcast probably going on about that, but
Maybe they're mixed with like a therapy session, also, you know, a whole different talk track. But maybe we'll save that for Boston.
I think I need therapy, is that what you're telling me?
We all do. We all do.
I have PTSD apparently.
Like, and I think I read this somewhere along the way, but we learn as much from the leaders that we respect as we do from the leaders who we know we never want to be like.
Mm,
And no leader's perfect, myself included. But ultimately, I hope that, and I've tried to look at every role that I've had with every leader that I've worked for, either worked with or worked for, and looked for opportunities to learn from them and to take their maxims or their priorities and evaluate them through the lens of what I'm capable of. And sometimes I can measure up and sometimes I don't. And sometimes I take something away and sometimes I just write down, hey, I never want to be like that.
right. Be the leader you wish you had had. I
Yeah,
love that expression. Be the
there you
leader
go.
that you wish you had had. And I try to live my life by that, honestly. And I think it has served me well. Um, so in order to be such a good and effective leader, you have to find time to also develop yourself.
Yeah.
So how do you, Ben Seals, balance or find the time to develop yourself with running such a big organization?
Yeah. So this is something I've read this along the way, and I've told my team over and over again. I've actually never had a single thought of my own that's profound. I just plagiarize others and then forget where I read it, so I don't have to give them credit. But at the end of the day, the president of the United States or the CEO of a hospital system that's 10 times the size of Thomas I Group, or one of my technicians, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. And the responsibility of leadership is to discern what needs to be done versus what is asking to be worked on. And leadership really comes down to how you prioritize your time to be effective at doing what only you can do. And this idea of radical delegation, where I've tried to work with my leadership team and have the conversation often around, am I doing what only I can do? Are they doing what only they can do? And does that give us the amount of time and resources that we need to grow and be the leaders that we need to be? And so it's a constant evaluation of my own schedule and the time that I spend interacting with others, interacting with other leaders, interacting with other resources that help me steer and navigate the organization into the future, and evaluating my schedule through the lens of, am I doing only the things that I can do? Or am I doing something and robbing someone else of the opportunity to do only what they can do?
I don't know if you mentioned it on this podcast, but I know that, or at least it seems as though you read quite a bit, right? As part of your development, you read quite a bit. What are, as we close out our podcast here, what are a couple of go-to resources that you'd recommend to our listeners?
Okay. So I read a lot. I try to read a book a week, is my pace. I live in Atlanta, so I'm afforded the luxury of traffic, which gives me a lot of time in the car to listen to books, podcasts, whatever. So for your purists out there who you have to turn the page on a book to call it reading, I would say, welcome to 2024. Not a lot of people do that anymore. But at the end of the day, I listen to a lot of books. There are three books that I read every single year. One is The Effective Executive by Peter Drucker. Number two is Every Good Endeavor by Tim Keller. And the third is The First 90 Days by Michael Watkins. So those three books I read at some point in every calendar year, to really keep me grounded around. You heard me reference The Effective Executive when I talked about that radical delegation of doing only what you can do. Drucker talks about doing a 30-day postmortem of your calendar and looking back at every 15-minute time slot in your calendar and measuring whether or not you were doing something that only you can do, someone else can do, or you should have never done. And looking at your calendar retrospectively and proactively through that lens. Every Good Endeavor keeps me grounded to the fact that even in ophthalmology and in running a big practice, that is a lot of data and a lot of financials and a lot of numbers and metrics. This is still all about people and investing in people and cultivating relationships and talent in a way that ultimately allows human flourishing. And then First 90 Days is a transitional book that we give out to every single promoted manager within the organization. But it also talks about in First 90 Days that our careers are a series of 90-day sprints. And so whatever projects you were working on before today, we'll call it, there is now a new 90-day sprint that you have embarked on, and simplifying the work that you're doing into 4 categories of where they are in the process and how they contribute to your organization, and then effectively running those 90-day sprints over and over again. It kind of helps me remember that there's always transition happening. There's always movement happening within an organization of any size. And so managing that transition and that change is a really important part of what we do as leaders.
Wow.
Here's my 3.
I love it. So every year, huh? You go back and read all 3 of them. That's neat.
Yeah.
I'll have to check those out. We'll have to try to remember to put those titles in the show notes too, because I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that would be interested in at least one, if not all 3 of them.
Yeah.
So, Ben, I think we're done with our conversation for today.
Awesome.
Why don't you tell the listeners if they want to reach out to you, how they can find you?
Best way to reach out to me is on LinkedIn. So Ben Seals on LinkedIn. You can find me there. Would love to connect and network with you. Look forward to getting to know your listeners as well as anybody else in the ophthalmology community that's looking to grow and develop not only the talent within your practice, but also the talent within yourself.
Oh, I love that. And you'll be at the annual meeting, the Oscars meeting in Boston?
Absolutely. Wouldn't miss it for almost anything in the world.
I know, it's great, isn't it? Are you speaking this year? Are you giving
I am, but on a limited schedule. So I purposefully didn't submit quite as many abstracts as I normally do, because I wanted to participate more as a board member. I wanted to be more available than I have been in the past, running from presentation to presentation. And at the end of the day, data, AI, and technology, people have heard me talk about them already. So, they're there and they're changing, but I'll let somebody else take that show for a little bit.
So what are you presenting on this year?
Compliance, actually. So that'll be an interesting one. Compliance, I am doing I'm taking a minor role in a technology presentation, and that's it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You're not speaking about talent development.
Not this year.
You should. Maybe next year.
Maybe next year. There you go. Maybe next year.
All right. Well, as always, Ben, it was good to talk with you, and I will look forward to seeing you next month. Can you believe it? It's only a month away.
That's crazy. It's a month away. Sarah, it's been great. Thank you so much. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to brag on my team and Rachel and what Rachel represents for a lot of people at Homicide Group.
Thank you so much, Ben, for joining us today and talking to us about developing your team's talent. We appreciate it very much. I also want to take a moment to thank our listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you. We cannot do what we do without you. If you like our podcast, kindly share it with your friends and on social media. Also, please don't forget to write a review on iTunes or Google Play. Your reviews will help other doctors and practice owners to find us. Till we meet again, wishing all of you an amazing week ahead.